Oh, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome, everybody. It is the Wednesday edition of Status Coup News. It is I, your host, Kim Brown, in today for Jordan Cheriton. Thank you so much for having me on your lovely news channel here. We like to welcome everybody into the room. Come on in, get comfortable. Here at Status Coup News, we are still practicing COVID mitigation stuff and things. So it is important that you remain masked whilst indoors while participating in this program. That would be great. Please be sure to wash your hands and still social distance, everybody, because we still are in the middle of a pandemic. I know America and capitalism has told us that the pandemic is over. No need to worry. Well, there are still hundreds of people dying from COVID every day. Thousands more continue to be hospitalized. So let's not play too many games with this pandemic. I don't give a fuck what capitalism is out here telling us. So, anywho, I'd like to welcome everybody to the channel. Do us a favor, come on in here and give the video a thumbs up, give the video a like. If you're not already subscribed to Status Coup News, please take a moment and press that button. Give us a subscription. We appreciate it. And actually, go even further, become a member of Status Coup News. It is so vitally important to support independent news channels, particularly those on the left, particularly those like Status Coup that cover events like the latest Jackson water crisis, like the ongoing water crisis in Flint, like the housing crisis that Jordan was covering in Ohio and West Virginia. You know, I don't see CNN covering all these things. Well, then again, I would not see CNN covering these things because I haven't watched CNN in at least 5 years. So I don't really know what CNN is doing. But if CNN is on the same shit they was on 5 years ago, I imagine they are not covering these stories or at least giving them the in-depth coverage that they deserve. But Status Coup is, my channel is as well, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. But we talk about Status Coup right now. So become a member of Status Coup. And actually, if you are a member, Jordan, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the members only, there is a members only call-in show for Status Coup. Please put that down on your calendars. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to ask Jordan questions, you want to tell Jordan things, you want Jordan to tell you things, well, he can do it. I was going to say face-to-face, but I guess as virtual as face-to-face goes in these days. That's happening tomorrow night right here on this channel, 7 p.m. The Status Coup members only call in. Please make a note of it. Well, gang, of course, you see the thumbnail and you see y'all's boy, Joe's Biden. I called him Joe's, plural, because he's a lot of Joes these days, right? He's good old Joe, Jim Crow Joe, corporate Joe, capitalist Joe. And he has liked to frame himself throughout his political career as Union Man Joe. Well, we're going to debunk that a little bit because, as you know, the pending railroad worker strike is set to begin Friday, but there has already been some changing fluid developments within that story. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. Also, I did want to take a moment towards the end of the program to acknowledge that Queen Elizabeth II, her casket has made its arrival to London town. And I am taking, let's say, the spiritedness of the Irish, which I'm sure you guys saw some of your Irish cousins in Dublin inside of the stadium hollering in unison about how Lindsey was in the box. And I want to continue the spirit of that same energy as we talk about the reasons why we need to abolish the monarchy and that this whole spectacle of the Queen's funeral is something that Americans in particular should not be drooling over, should not be ogling at. That is nothing to aspire to. I know America has conditioned us to think that we are princesses and kings and queens in the making. No. We need to abolish the monarchy. Get that shit out of here. And we're going to talk about why the history of Elizabethan II's rule and her predecessors, why all that just gets conveniently skated over by mainstream American media, by mainstream British media. We're going to take a real look at some of the colonial atrocities committed by the British Crown in Elizabeth's name. But to begin today's show, let's kick things off right here in America, where women only kind of have rights, right? Don't ever let nobody talk to you about Sharia law and in Iran and in Saudi Arabia. Right here in Los Estados Unidos in America, women in half of the states across this country do not have bodily autonomy. They do not have a proper say over the health care that they can receive. And two additional states today made damn near total abortion bans. Indiana and West Virginia have already joined a horrible collection of states that have outlawed abortion rights and abortion practices for pregnant people in those states. And joining us today to discuss that, actually, hold on. Yeah. Let's join us today to discuss. I'd like to welcome freelance writer and social media consultant Molly Shaw. Molly is based in Berlin, but prior to going to Germany, Molly was a teacher, a lawyer. She writes for The Real News, therealnews.com. You can follow her reproductive justice reporting there on The Real News. And Molly joins us today to not only discuss, how there are more states, Molly, that have now announced damn near outright abortion bans, but South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham had a very interesting press conference yesterday where he introduced a federal abortion bill in the Senate. And we know that doesn't stand a chance, but just the fact that he had the gall to present such a bill is something that I think is worthy of discussion. But first, Molly, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Status Coup. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Always good to see you, Kim.
All right. Well, Molly, we've got a lot to get into. And first thing I want to do, let's start in Indiana. Adios mio. When people look at America and they divide it in like North and South, I'm like, no. No. Like the North is good, the South is bad. No, the whole thing. Throw it the whole thing in the trash. It's garbage. Get rid of it. Colin, let's take a look at that piece. I believe it's WT VR. I may have that incorrect there in the call letters of the TV station, but I want you guys to understand, like, this is a serious issue that continues to plague us. And sure, we can look at this as potentially a midterm election issue, but for people who have the ability to get pregnant, this is not politics. You understand? This is serious, everyday potential life and death, and it goes beyond elective abortions and all of that. So let's take up this piece from WTHR television out in Indiana, which gives us a bit of a cursory overview of the new abortion restrictions that have gone into effect in Indiana starting tomorrow, September 15th. Let's take a look.
For all the members voted, tally the roll. Roll call shows 62 ayes, 38 noes. The bill has passed. So I tell the bill remain the title of the act.
It was that vote banning abortion in Indiana. Beginning September 15th, abortions would only be allowed in cases of rape and incest before 10 weeks post-fertilization to protect the life and physical health of the mother and if a fetus is diagnosed with any anomalies. And abortions can only be done in hospitals or outpatient centers owned by hospitals. That means abortion clinics like Planned Parenthood would lose their license. Planned Parenthood won't be able to offer abortion services, but will remain open to offer birth control, primary care services, pregnancy testing, STD treatment, screenings, and more. Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocate spokesperson Nicole Irwin told 13 News, for 70% of patients we serve, our Planned Parenthood health centers are their only source of health care. This map shows several abortion clinics in Indiana. Of those, Planned Parenthood of Indianapolis performed more than 2,400 abortions in 2021. And according to a report by the Indiana Department of Health, Marion, Lake, and Allen counties had the most abortions. There were more than 8,400 abortions performed at both abortion clinics and hospitals. 133 were done across IU Health hospital systems, Eskenazi, and Deaconess in the Evansville area.
So, I'm looking at that piece, Molly. For one, there's a lot about that piece that jumps out that is bothersome. I don't know why I needed to know the exact to the number of abortions that were performed in Indiana over a given period. I don't really think that's relevant, but let's put a pin in that and come back to that. West Virginia also today announced that there is a damn near total ban on abortions. And this brings the total number of states where abortion is illegal in the United States. It's practically half the country. So how do we view this ongoing steamrolling of women's bodily rights and the access to abortion care that is vitally critical to surviving a pregnancy or a failed pregnancy?
Well, I think when you look at what we're doing sort of as a nation to it, there was a lot of talk by liberal feminists in particular that like, we're going to take to the streets and burn it down if we end abortion. But abortion has been ended in states that are poorer, typically, and abortion has been ended for people who have not a lot of access to abortion already, even when it was legal in those states. So we haven't seen this like huge mass uprising that was promised if abortion was made, if Roe was overturned. Mainly because a lot of the focus and a lot of the leadership on this is rich white women, and they don't have the same concerns that other people have. And they're very focused on this like electoral strategy, which I'm not opposed to completely having an electoral strategy. I think abortion is popular, as you can see in Kansas. If you run like political referendum directly on abortion, it's highly popular. I think they won 60% or something. I mean, it was like a very high amount in Kansas. So I'm not opposed to like electoral strategies. I think that like this is a public health catastrophe and that we should attack it in many ways. But I think like what you're seeing from the news media, and like you mentioned CNN at the top, and like when I was like, you asked me to be on, I like pulled up like just like the generic, what are the news media saying like about this, right? So I pulled up like KCNN, and it was Chris Kilzilla, is that how you say his name?
Eliza, I think it's
yeah. That's like, and I pulled up his article because I knew it would be ridiculous. And his article is just like a full-on like analysis for the midterms and like what was the secret strategy that Lindsey Graham had to do this, blah 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 blah. And like that was, and then when I started going through all of it, it was just a lot of that, like this like midterm analysis, like how does this impact the midterms? Like the media is very focused on that. And like, to me, like this is a public health catastrophe, and it is like completely irresponsible to address it only as like a political fight between two parties, which is what is happening with the news media. And they're doing things too that really concern me. Like, so Lindsey Graham, the bill that he's proposed, just to be clear off the top, it's not going to pass. Like in this Congress, it's not going to pass. It's probably not. I mean, it probably is going nowhere. And he has proposed this bill multiple times before. I think maybe in every Congress he has proposed this bill. So it's not like a new bill, but I just want to like read the name of it just because I want to like, I do think that Lindsey Graham does have a strategy. Like, I don't think I think his, whatever he wrote was ridiculous, but like, I don't think he's wrong. I do think he has a strategy, but I want to like, if I read you the name of this, it's called Protecting Pain-Capable Unborn Children from Late-Term Abortion. So that's like the name that he's giving this. And a lot of the like news media, some of it is pushback, but a lot of it has like just used this late-term abortion stand. They've used this like protecting from pain. Like there's been some discussion about this. This is medical like bullshit. Like it's just not a real thing. And late-term abortion, first off, that's not a medical term. It's like a completely made up term. And even if it wasn't a completely made up term, when it's been used before, it's been used to talk, you're talking about abortions in like 21 to 24 weeks as opposed to 15 weeks. So like, it's a really masterful use of the media to do kind of like what their plan is, which is to do this. They want to outlaw not just abortions at 15 weeks, they want to outlaw abortions completely. Like if they get this passed, they'll pass more. And they're using this like reframing of what we're talking about, and they're getting lots of coverage of it. And there's like some of this like Mitch McConnell is mad, he didn't want to do this, and Susan Collins is like, oh, how dare you? And like it's just not like, it doesn't matter. Like they have no intention of winning elections by rules anymore. Like that's very clear. And they have no intention of like you know, like they are playing to their base, sure, but they're also like, they're playing this long game that they have played since the 80s on abortion, and they're going to play it on everything else too. Like they're coming for trans people, they're coming for gay rights, they're coming for everything. They're coming for your birth control. And like this Christo-fascist like regime is like on the way, and the Democrats and the news media just seem like wholly incapable of addressing it, which is very worrisome.
Let's take a look at Lindsey Graham's press conference and, you know, sort of examine and be listening out for the very things that you just laid out there, Molly, because as you said, you know, the conservatives are extremely adept at their messaging, at their framing, and they're counting on the laziness of the mainstream media to not do follow-up questions, to not push back on certain things like, oh, surely Senator Graham is introducing this because he doesn't want infants to feel pain or fetuses to feel pain. And it's like, well, has anyone talked to a doctor? Has anyone asked the doctors about the medical validity of even the naming of such a piece of legislation? But let's take a listen to Lindsey Graham and what he had to say.
Graham, what would you say to somebody like me who found out that their son had an anomaly that would make him incompatible life in 16 weeks? I had regular appointments, I did everything right, and at 16 weeks we found out that our son would likely not live. When he was born, he lived for 8 days. He bled from every orifice of his body, but we were allowed to make that choice for him. You would be robbing that choice from those women? What do you say to someone like that?
Here's what I would say. The world pretty much has spoken on this issue. The developed world has said at this stage into the pregnancy, the child feels pain, and we're saying we're going to join the rest of the world and not be like Iran. As to your particular case, there'll be exceptions for life of the mother and rape and incest. But
there are no exceptions in this bill.
Well, ma'am, there were 55,000 abortions after the 15-week period. And I think we're resolved to get America back in line with the rest of the world. And we won't know where America is until we vote, until we debate. And so to my Democratic friends, you're going around calling all of us every name you can think of. We're a bunch of wackos. Your idea is wacko, not ours. Let's vote. Let's vote. Give me a chance to vote on this bill. We'll take her considerations and we'll vote. Now, I guarantee if we have a debate on the floor of the United States Senate where we can explain what we're doing versus what they would do, we'll do really well with the American people. And over time, God willing, we're going to be like the rest of the world and not like Iran at the federal level when it comes to abortion. We're going nowhere. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that was Lady G surrounded with his cadre of basic bitches, and I said it. I don't know who them chicks are, but any woman that would stand behind a man that would sit up there and advocate from a federal perspective that your bodily rights be restricted or outright denied, you are a basic bitch. I don't know what else to call you. But anyway, let's get back to some of the things that he said. And you're right, Molly. So this bill that Graham has introduced, it does not stand a chance of getting passed in this Senate, but a different Senate with a Republican majority and potentially a Republican vice president who may be there to, you know, cast a tie-breaking ballot. No, this kind of ban could actually go into effect at the federal level if the Republicans are able to secure Congress and the control of Congress again. That's what really scares me about this bill, even though you said he's introduced it many times before. Once they get back into control of the legislative branch, they could actually enact something like this.
And when he introduced it, Roe was the law of the land. So even if it had passed, it wouldn't have really mattered. And I think it sort of speaks to, I mean, a lot of things Lindsey Graham did were just infuriating and like made my blood pressure roll. I do want to talk just briefly about the rest of the world thing, because that particularly pissed me off. But like when he's talking about France has a 15-week ban. And I just want to be like really clear about like how bad American healthcare is. So when you're talking about a 15-week ban in France, you're talking about women who have had access the entire time with very little restriction, with payment from the government for their abortion if they want one, and where they can get them at many many more places than in the United States. A 15-week ban to somebody who is like, let's say in one of the banned states like Alabama, and Alabama is surrounded by banned states. So like, I think the closest place right now before 15 weeks is maybe Florida, and then that's going to be gone soon. And then you're talking like places like Illinois, like that people from Alabama are going to have to go to. There's long waiting lists at every clinic that is next to a banned state and ones that are further out even. And so you're talking about like time, and there's all these weird rules that they're trying to pass. Like Alabama is trying, like, if you leave the state, you could be charged in Alabama with aiding and abetting, maybe like an abortion. I don't think that's the law in Alabama right now, but there are states that are trying to pass those laws. I think Texas has something that's sort of similar to that they're trying to work on. So you're talking about women that are people that are going to get it pushed back further and further when their abortion is going to be. So it's not like the rest of the world is like, oh, we have abortions up to 15 weeks. And there's a million exceptions in France, of course, after 15 weeks. But these, like anybody that in France or in most of Europe that goes, not Poland, that goes for an abortion has like a lot more medical options and a lot more care than the United States does, particularly poor people and people in red states in the United States. So that just pissed me off. But
of course, because the audacity of Lindsey Graham to sit there and say that, oh, we need to keep America in line with the rest of the world. The rest of the world has standardized healthcare, has universal healthcare provided for the citizens. So let's start there, Senator Graham. Let's bring America up to that standard before we start picking and choosing about who has rights to healthcare and who does not. But, the other aspect, the thing that Lindsey Graham said that really kind of got on my nerves when he, for one, I don't understand why he was singling out Iran, right? Because I love it when the
Orientalism,
the creeping Sharia and the creeping Islamophobia, will always leap out of these Christian evangelicals. Like, don't be like those Muslims, but it's like actually within Islam, pregnant women have way more rights and things available to them than currently abortion restrictive states here in the United States.
Think Iran actually might have, I think he was pointing to it because Iran actually does have a really liberal abortion law. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think he's pointing to it to be like, we don't want to be like Iran, like, because Iran lets their women have abortions like up until whenever. So I think that was actually what he was trying to do as opposed to the other way around. But the Democrats do it the other way around where they're like, oh, Sharia law, it's like, it's not Sharia law, it's Christo-fascist.
And speaking of Christo-fascists, right there in Lindsey Graham's home state of South Carolina, Colin, can we get the state piece up there? Because last week in South Carolina, they failed to pass basically an outright ban on all abortions. Instead, they have kicked it back to the state legislature, and now they're aiming for a 6-week abortion ban, which of course we know many pregnant people do not even realize that they are pregnant at 6 weeks along. And these limited exceptions, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Molly, because we hear these phrases ballied about very casually. Oh, of course, we'll make exceptions in the case of rape or incest or anything like that. But in this bill that just passed, I think it was West Virginia, where the abortion ban went into effect today. If you are trying to seek an abortion within the state of West Virginia and you've been raped, you have to make a report to the police within 48 hours prior to the procedure being done, which as many survivors of rape and sexual assault know that, hey, the police are not really your friends in those situations. And that can be a re-traumatizing event after already dealing with an assault to have to go and tell the police. And I don't like the way that law enforcement is tied into all of these laws here, Molly. So in terms of the exception of rape or incest, to me, that sounds like bullshit because you have to involve law enforcement to even make that claim.
Well, and another thing I want to point, that is true. Like to have the idea of having to go through to make the choice very quickly as to whether or not you're going to report a sexual assault, especially because a lot of these are done of minors or of, people in horrific situations where going to the police is very scary for them, or maybe a police officer did it. There's a lot of that. Another thing I want to point out about all these exceptions. So let's say it's an ideal world, we're in fantasy land where the exceptions actually rule and they're fairly ruled on all the time. Where are the doctors to do this? You you are losing in massive parts of the country any training in abortion care. So you're going to lose like OBGYNs who even know how to do this. And like, and a lot of things like that are just going to kind of go away. Where like you can't get pharmacists to fill pills right now. Like people are not getting like, you know, like for perfectly like legitimate, not related to abortion care at all, pills right now because they're abortion pills. They're not being able to get them at their pharmacies in some of these red states. So it's like, where are those pills going to be? Where are the doctors who know how to do surgical abortions going to be? Like, even if you have all of these exceptions, which they are all going to be like so limited as to like when they apply and like who gets them, like it's not going to be fantasy world. But even if it was, it's like you're losing like a lot of like medical training and like medical help in order to do this. I mean, luckily abortion funds in particular, and lots of people like who have worked on the ground in abortion, prepared with like a lot of information. And I just want to say, like, to anyone that's watching this, like abortion pills are safe and effective. And abortion pills, you can self-manage your own abortion. And if you're interested in doing that, I really suggest like going to some of the like sites that will help you do that. And I don't want to give out the wrong address, but I'll maybe post in the chat later. The site you can go to figure out like how abortion pills work and how you can get them like via mail often. So just like to have that out there. But there are cases where you're going to need surgical abortions, where people are going to need follow-ups and are things or later on in pregnancy or have more complications, and like where are the doctors to do it? So that's what worries me about the exceptions. It's like if you're doing 12 abortions a year in the entire state because of an exception law, like who's doing this? So where are they getting training to do it?
I watched the presser from the West Virginia Democratic Caucus in the West Virginia legislature, and that was one of the specific points that I think one of the members there, who is a doctor, said that West Virginia currently is in obstetrics desert. So is South Carolina. There's a lot of these states that are obstetrics deserts where you are having a hard time finding an OBGYN, and with these doctors under the threat of criminal prosecutions, if they perform even, medically necessary abortions, I feel horrible for women who live in these states who are not going to be able to see a doctor. I'm concerned that the rates of cervical cancer and all the other things that go along with gynecology and preventative medicine associated with gynecology, these things are going to go away because the doctors are going to leave these states.
Well, and a lot of times the first time that women access or people that need abortion access reproductive health care is after an abortion. Like, so that's when they get information on pap smears. That's when they get information on contraception. Like the first time they get that information is after an abortion in the clinic, and that is just gone. And like, so you're talking about like a lot of people who aren't getting like some basic health care and some basic like follow-up. And also like, not always, like, but a lot of abortion care providers are like very affirming, and it's like a very like, like it's a very patient-focused practice. And that's not always the case, particularly with poor people who are seeking medical care. And so to lose those inroads to people where you've got like, like people that can talk to you about your own medical issues without like a lot of, judgment or feeding, like going through the system fast. And like, that's certainly not always true. There are problems in any system. There are problems in the abortion care system, but it's a real big loss to all of those states to like not have that care as well. I mean, abortion is healthcare, but like also all of this other care that's kind of like wrapped up in it just is gone. So it's really, really unfortunate. I mean, it's not just unfortunate. I feel like sometimes I like couch that. It's a public health catastrophe. That's what we're experiencing right now. Like we are experiencing a huge public health catastrophe, like on the scale of many, many, many huge, like, I mean, I don't want to say COVID, but like, I mean, basically like, it's like people will die, people will not have, and like, not just die, they won't have access to the life that they wanted to have. Like, they don't have access to like so many things. They won't be able to go to school. They will be trapped in abusive relationships. Like there's just so many things that happen in regards to this that is just like decreasing like public health outcomes like overall. And like, we're just like treating this like it's not a catastrophe, which it is.
So there's a lot of darkness. I'm gonna let you go here, Molly, in just a moment. But so there's a lot of darkness in this issue, right? Women in this country, you and I are semi-despondent about the situation. That's why on Burn It Down with Kim Brown, ever since Roe has been overturned, monthly we have been supporting a different abortion fund, a grassroots organization on the ground in abortion restrictive states. If you go to my channel's community page, we are supporting this month the Arkansas Abortion Fund, which I strongly encourage people to try to support materially as much as you are able. But Molly, so with all the darkness, right? So, some of the sunshine came to me in the form of that Kansas referendum, right? When voters in Kansas, in very red Kansas, came out and reaffirmed that access to abortion should be a state constitutional right for pregnant people. And, in the darkness, we are living under a Democratic administration right now. Joe Biden is in the White House. Kamala Harris is the vice president. Like, all of this negative things surrounding abortion has happened under Democratic rule. And we are only an election away from potentially Republicans seizing back control over either the White House or even Congress. And then I can't imagine what this country will look like with all three branches controlled by these evangelical Christo-fascists. But what is the potential, like the worst case scenario? Because I feel as though many people and folks who have grown accustomed to having abortion access just right there, even people who live in blue states right now, you may live in New York, you may live in New Jersey, and you're like, that's a them problem. That's a down south problem. That's a Midwest problem. But, the introduction of this bill by Lindsey Graham indicates that they still have the pro-life movement still has their sights set very high at a outright nationwide federal abortion ban. And tell the people why that is completely feasible and very possible, even though many people think that it is not.
Well, first off, they have passed laws. I don't know why we think like, if they're unpopular, they won't get these laws passed. They have passed laws and pursued judicial remedies for decades that have been massively unpopular with people. We don't elect people in a democracy here. The Senate is not a democracy. He's talking about, let us all vote about it, I think Lindsey Graham said, and you'll see what the people want. And it's like, in the Senate, we will, because like red states have like huge outnumbered things. In addition, there's like tons of voter suppression. And I mean, like, they are not just coming after abortion, like they are coming after abortion nationwide, and they 100% are going to try to do that. And I don't know if the Democrats are like capable of fighting back. I certainly hope they are, because there's nothing like on the horizon right now that seems to be an alternative. But although there should be, the Democrats like seem really focused on like being like, these are MAGA Republicans. Like, I mean, that's like all the statements I read from Democrats on this. It's like, these MAGA Republicans need to stop this. These are Republicans. I don't know who MAGA Republicans are. These are the Republicans. Like, it's just what they do. Like, it's all of them. And like, I mean, like the Democrats have been doing a lot of like pointing out, like Lindsey Graham is a hypocrite because he said like right after this thing came down, now the states get to decide. And now he wants to do a nationwide abortion ban. And it's like, why are we focusing on whether or not Lindsey Graham is a hypocrite? Who is it? Who cares? Who votes on the Lindsey Graham is a hypocrite or not platform? Like, who is that platform for? Like, who does that help except for like appeasing like their like liberals can make jokes about it. Like, it's just infuriating to me that they aren't addressing like the material conditions and the public health catastrophe that is happening. And like, it is completely possible for them to do this. And they're going to come after they're coming after Brown. Like, they're coming after everything. And I feel like people are not prepared for that. Like, they're coming after that through the judiciary, and they're coming after that as soon as they get power, which they will, because they have absolutely no intention of respecting fair elections or holding fair elections. And they're going to come after Brown. They're going to come after Griswold. They're going to come after gay marriage. They're going to come after they're coming after everything that like basically has been progressive past in the past like 60 years. And then they're also going to go back and like, they're going to try to like, overturn like so much of like economic stuff that's going to be terrible too. And there's the Democrats are just like completely unprepared. I mean, like I wrote an article, I think like right before the the Dobbs decision came out, like right before even the thing was leaked. And I said, the Democrats are totally unprepared for the end of Roe v. Wade. And like, they were like, and it's like, and like right now I'm saying the Democrats are completely unprepared for like the rolling back of like all of the like civil rights gains of the past 60 years. And like, that's what they're planning to do. And like, I mean, it's like, if you're going to be in the streets, be in the fucking streets, like, you know, like, so.
Yes, all of that. I co-sign to all of that. Everybody, we've been joined today with freelance writer, reproductive justice beat coverer. That's what I will call you, Molly. Freelance writer. She's a social media consultant. Her name is Molly Shaw. Please go to therealnews.com and type in her name. You can check out some of Molly's outstanding reporting. She's been covering the issue of reproductive justice and abortion rights for a long time now, and very thoroughly and succinctly. And Molly, I certainly appreciate you making time today on your birthday, Virgo Queen. So thank you so much.
You can follow me on Twitter at Molly O'Shaw. So,
at Molly O'Shaw on Twitter. Follow her now. Follow her now. Molly, thank you so much for making time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Hey, gang, do us a favor, Status Couers. If you are in the chat, give us a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Become a member of the channel, because tomorrow night, 7 p.m., you can participate in a members-only call-in with Jordan, 7 p.m. tomorrow night. That is only for members of the channel. So get your credit cards together and sign up to become a member of Status Coup, and subscribe and like the video as well. So speaking of y'all's boy, and I hate to call him y'all's boy, but I will call him y'all's boy, because I believe some of y'all voted for Joe Biden, and some of y'all may not have had a choice to vote for Joe Biden. And I understand that. You may have been in a tightly contested state and, you know, you just held your nose and voted for Joe Biden. I get it. No vote shaming here. Well, at least not today. But Joe Biden is Bidening at a very high level, per usual. Joe Biden loves to present himself as a man of the people. I'm from Scranton. My dad worked in a factory. Okay, then why are you fucking over working people, Joe Biden, as if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you went to Yale and Harvard along with, you know, Mitt Romney and George Bush and all that? You do not carry yourself politically like a blue collar person. And I want you guys to understand. So this looming railroad workers strike is a BFD. This is a big deal, everybody. Most Americans are not prepared to go to the stores and find the things that they are looking for not readily stocked on the shelves. And we experienced a little bit of that at the onset of COVID. But if the railroads shut down, if there is nobody going choo-choo, if nobody's driving that train, we haven't even begun to understand the potential ramifications of that in the ways. And I'm not here, let me be clear, we are not here to shame the railroad workers or the union members in this at all, but the mainstream media will, and you're already starting to hear it in the stories coming out. Well, Amtrak service could be affected, and the goods that you look for in your stores, they may not actually be there. And you don't ever hear the whys, the why. Why are tens of thousands of these workers voting to strike? Well, Jordan had the opportunity to interview one of the railroad workers. Let's see here. This is going to be from the Rail Workers United, and he spoke with Ron. And I want us to take a listen to what Ron had to say first, because, you know, all these stories that I'm seeing on regular news, mainstream media, whatever, I'm not hearing from the railroad workers. I'm hearing from the Biden administration. I'm hearing from this one, from that one, but I'm not hearing from the actual people affected. So let's lead off this subject and this topic by going with that. Let's take a listen.
As it turned out, the very next day, August 17th, we awoke to a jubilant rail industry. Its mouthpieces, the American Association of Railroads, and its bargaining wing, the National Carriers Conference Committee, were both crowing about that this was fair and equitable, and they were ready to move forward under the basis of these recommendations. The unions, on the other hand, and the rank and file in particular, not so happy. If you read the summary And Railroad Workers United just came out with a bulletin yesterday morning that summarizes quite nicely the PEB's position on most work rule questions. So leaving aside wages and healthcare for the moment, the thing we got to understand here, Jordan, and the industry will never fess up to this and bring this out. The industry likes to say, look, we give these guys 4 or 5 weeks vacation. True, if you have 15, 20, or 25 years, that's first thing on the vacation. We give these guys 12 personal days. Once again, true, but you build up to that over 10, 20, 30 years of seniority to get those personal days. Then they'll say that they have holidays. Well, true, some crafts, particularly in the yard, will get paid, but that doesn't mean you get the day off. So when we're talking about time off, holidays don't necessarily apply to many workers on the railroad. You might make double time and a half for working the holiday, let's say, but this isn't what we're talking about here. We're talking about quality of work life, the ability to take time off, be with our families, and have a life.
Ron there from the railroad workers speaking to Jordan about the conditions that they are being subjected to. So these workers are on call 24/7. Most of them are working 80 hours a week, maybe more. Most of them are spending many dozens of hours away from home, not even being paid. And they don't even have the option to take off to go see the doctor without being penalized in some way. And so there's been a couple of movings around going on with this. So labor reporter Lauren Kaori Gurley reported earlier today that the rail strike update, the Department of Labor Secretary Walsh will host the rail carriers unions in DC tomorrow, which I believe was today, this morning, to quote, encourage the parties to come to a mutually beneficial agreement, right? Well, that doesn't sound very encouraging from the Secretary of Labor. The unions are 3 days away from a railroad strike deadline that could and would disrupt supply chains nationwide. And who is this? Robert Reich. Why did I copy this? Robert Reich tweeted that Warren Buffett owns I can't even read, the BNSF Railroad, right? And they track time off by their employees with points. So if you miss too many days off, you will accumulate points. And if you accumulate too many points, you will be fired. So what does it say? I mean, this is, I don't see how this is much different from indentured servitude. I mean, too many people very casually compare things to slavery. I assure you, this is not like slavery, but this is very, very, very bad and strenuous working conditions that these railroad workers are being subjected to. And let me say this, I mentioned this on my show yesterday, as somebody who lives in proximity to these rail lines, to the CSX lines, to the Amtrak lines, it is very important that you make sure that these people are well taken care of, that most importantly, that they are well rested, because failure to have safe railways is also a public safety concern, right? So that's something to be mindful of. But let's also be mindful of the wordplay games that Joe Biden will play. Joe Biden knows what to say when it's time to beg for votes. He knows how to go into black churches and give the good, fake me out, I understand, black Christianity, But he also knows how to go into union spaces, labor spaces, and talk himself up as a man of the people, blue collar man, Scranton, Delaware. All right, cool. CNN pulled this mashup of Joe Biden touting himself as a union man. I think we should take a look at it so we can laugh.
I make no apologies. I am a union man, period.
You've heard me say many times, I intend to be the most pro-union president, leading the most pro-union administration in American history.
I promise to be the most pro-union president in American history, and Marty's keeping me make that promise.
All right, Marty. Massachusetts, is that you? Boston, is that you? Is that the Marty Walsh? You better tell Marty Walsh to tighten up out here and stop being the buffer for the capitalist class. Stop being the buffer for the ownership class. Do you know how much money these railways made last year? They made billions of dollars. They have made tens of billions of dollars since the onset of the pandemic, and they have not passed along any of those profits to their workers at all. These people have not been compensated with a raise in more than 3 years, but they have been asked to do more. And this in the wake of tens of thousands of layoffs over the past 5 years. So these railways are already operating understaffed, they're overworked, and they can't even take the day off to go to the doctor to see if they will be healthy enough to come to work the next day. There was another piece of this that I wanted to report. Thank you so much. So More Perfect Union. Do we have that tweet, Colin? If we don't, that's okay. I have it here. So they tweeted this out. This was 2 o'clock this afternoon, 2:05 p.m. Update. A first rail union has voted to authorize a strike. 5,000 workers from the Machinist Union voted to reject the railroad's preferred deal and authorize a strike. Their action would begin on September 29th to allow more time for negotiations. So it sounds as though the rail strike, it's still very much on the horizon, but they are going to give the companies a little bit more time, maybe about a week and some change, to try to see if they can come to some sort of agreement. My theory is, and I know that Jordan's going to be reporting on this more so tomorrow and Friday as things continue to develop. Hold on. Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me really read you this tweet too as well from Jonah Furman, labor reporter. He reported BNSF just sent out an internal communications on their legislative plan to impose a contract. Quote, "We remain in close contact with our congressional leadership to ensure that they remain prepared to act in the event of a national strike to enact the PEB's recommendations into law." So I'm reading this as the railroad owners understand that Joe Biden and basically all of Congress, I can't even necessarily point the finger exclusively at Democrats, Republicans too, whoever else is up in there on Capitol Hill, they've been bought, they've been paid for, and they are going to act on at the behest of capital. Joe Biden is here to act more so in the interest of Warren Buffett than he is in the interest of Ron from the Railworkers Union. You understand? Warren Buffett's input means way more to Joe Biden than the average working person. And all of that, I'm every man, that's just shtick. That's just, stuff. that's just shit to say. That don't mean you have to mean any of that. And we look at the Biden administration's policies. We have seen the ways that Starbucks workers and Amazon workers have been targeted, harassed, fired just for their unionizing efforts, for attempting to unionize, which, by the way, is their American given right, allegedly, depending on whomst we are referring to. But please keep an eye on this railroad worker strike, because this could be, I looked up the Pullman strike of 1894, one of the most significant labor actions in American history, involved the railroad workers. This could be as seismic as that. So it is imperative that, number one, we stand in solidarity with the railroad workers. And please don't let mainstream media, don't let these politicians besmirch the unions in any way. These workers are not being greedy, okay? They are being exploited, okay? And all of they are asking for is basic human decency, human compensation. And I think Warren Buffett, sitting on billions of dollars, can afford to pay these folks the money that they absolutely deserve and should be compensated for. We're going to come back to that. Like I said, stay tuned to Status Coup. I'm sure Jordan is going to be all over this tomorrow and Friday and into next week. So please be paying attention to that. Hey, we got a nice little crowd in here. How many likes do we have on the video? Because, gang, I am a journalism major, so math was not my strong subject. Oh, good. The maths is mathing. I'm glad to see it. The thumbs up and the amount of people present are on point and matching. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat. Come through, Fire Fam. I see you in here. What's up, Paul X BSOG? How come I don't see you in the Burn It Down with Kim Brown chat no more like I used to? What's going on? So anyway, thumbs up on that. Don't forget, tomorrow is the members only call-in show, 7 p.m. right here on Status Coup News. And the last story that I wanted to get into, y'all, has to do with her Royal Majesty, her Queen, the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. Her box has arrived at London. And Lizzie's in the box. Now, if you are a royal watcher, or if you somehow hold the monarchy in any sort of reverence, you might want to log off because this is not a deferential commentary that I'm about to offer up on not only her Royal Majesty, but on the monarchy in general. Let's start off with that King Charles piece there, Colin. So Queen Elizabeth, as we know, died, right? 96 years old. Ooh, evil be living, don't it? Evil just be going and going and going. So she's gone. Her son, 73-year-old King Charles. King Charles is in, but check this out. King Charles is already coming in. Not only is King Charles coming in about to inherit a very nice inheritance, chances are that King Charles is not going to have to pay much of anything of taxes on those many millions and billions of dollars. This piece is from Fortune magazine, and the headline reads, King Charles is legally dodging millions in taxes because a 1990s prime minister didn't want royal wealth to be, quote, salami sliced away. Look at how the elites take up for each other. Look at how a prime minister will ensure that the wealth of the Windsors persists throughout many generations. The subhead says, Queen Elizabeth II passed her $750 million estate on to King Charles III without any inheritance tax. Imposing such a tax would change the crown, quote, in a way that few people in this country would welcome, said former Prime Minister John Major. Now, John Major's a little bit before my time. I only remember dickheads like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair and Boris Johnson, the most recent. Boris looks like walking monkeypox. I just wanted to throw that in there. But let's check this out. So according to this piece on Fortune, people in the United Kingdom pay a 40% inheritance tax on for all the parts of an estate worth more than the country's tax-free threshold of $325,000, but not the reigning monarch. In the wake of Queen Elizabeth II's passing last week, the newly anointed King Charles III has been ascended to the throne and taken ownership of his mother's considerable estate, and he won't have to give the government a penny for any of it. What? Who said that the monarchy should be allowed to remain in place? Now that he is the king, Charles automatically takes on the title of the Duke of Lancaster. Jesus, I don't care about any of this. And all of its corresponding duchy. Is that a real word? D-U-C-H-Y? I'm probably pronouncing that very wrong. Valued at 641 million pounds or $750 million. Is the word douchey? I'm sorry. I'm very immature. I'm an immature journalist here. Please don't pay me any attention. Or is it Dutchy? I think I prefer Dutchy. But you get the point here. I'm going to stop reading this because it's throwing words at me that I'm uncertain about how to pronounce, and I'm probably pronouncing them very wrong. D-U-C-H-Y. Is it douchey or is it Dutchy? Either way, King Charles does not have to pay taxes on $750 million worth of inheritance, okay? And that is just, I would imagine, the cash. Let's talk about those real estate holdings. Let's talk about those 6 counties in Ireland that the Queen still owns, right? Let's talk about Balmoral Castle worth $70 million. Let's talk about Buckingham Palace worth $1 billion. And let's also talk about the sovereign grants of public money that the royal monarchy gets from the British people, gets from the people of the United Kingdom every single year to do what? Jack shit. To be of service. Oh, and you get to show up to the hospital and shake hands. This is me being of service. Oh, I get $100 million to be of service. Oh my gosh. So the monarchy is just this relic, this relic of imperialism and of colonialism, but it's not even like an ancient relic, right? It's not even like, of course, it's 1,000 years old, but please believe the colonialist adventures that comprised the British Empire were absolutely very much still taking place during the 70 years of Queen Elizabeth's reign. And the brutality associated with that, of the subjugation of literally millions of people, hundreds of millions of people in basically every continent on the globe, should not be ignored. But yet it is being ignored or not being framed properly in the ways that I think the media should frame this. So I want us to take a look at a clip. Let's see. This clip was on Twitter and it was posted by Double Down News. And we're only going to watch a couple of minutes of it, but it's a very it's a very loaded 2 minutes 24 seconds. So the name of this video is called "The Dark Side of British History That You Weren't Taught in School." And who is this man talking about this? George. Let's talk to George. Talk to George about the situation. Let George give us and this is a very cursory, fractional overview of the literal destruction and imperialism and subjugation, genocide, all of these things that were done under the British Crown and in the name of Queen Elizabeth II. Let's take a look.
In Britain, we present the colonial project as being about teaching the natives table manners and double-entry bookkeeping. In India, the British manufactured a famine in the 1870s out of nothing. There were food surpluses, massive amounts of food. But the governor, Lord Lytton, insisted that this food be exported wholesale to Britain. The ensuing starvation killed at least 12 million people, possibly as much as 29 million people. All relief works were banned except for hard labour in labour camps, where the inmates received the same rations as the inmates of Buchenwald, and where there was a 94% death rate per year. This was all done in the name of liberal free market capitalism. Of course, the British did something similar in Ireland. In Kenya, soon after the Second World War, there was an uprising by the Kikuyu people who wanted their land back. The Kikuyu were herded into concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of over 1 million people. People were systematically tortured to death. They invented a new kind of pliers whose purpose was first to crush men's testicles and then to cut them off. They raped women with bayonets. They raped men. Similarly, a favoured technique was to ram sand up the rectum with a stick. Sometimes they were rolled up in barbed wire and kicked around the compound until they bled to death. Some of the British soldiers boasted about this. This is within living memory. The Colonial Secretary lied about it. The papers documenting it were burnt. The impact of the rich and powerful nations has been so phenomenally murderous and destructive that it has been completely airbrushed from our national consciousness. In order to justify the land-grabbing colonial projects, you had to create an ideology. We, the Europeans or the Americans, have come to rescue the rest of the world from its depravity and backwardness. But in order to do that, you have to be able to demonstrate that the rest of the world is depraved and backward. From this arose the racism that is still with us today. It was a necessary component of the colonial project.
While George was giving his lesson right there, all I heard was spread democracy to every corner of the globe. You understand that these racist, imperialist misadventures, and that's really a flippant way for me to describe it, because it is outright invasion of people's lands, depriving them of their culture, and many times depriving them of just basic human rights, the right to food, the right to exist. Did you hear those atrocities that he described that happened in Kenya because of the British invasion, and then the Mau Mau uprising when people fought back? Queen Elizabeth, before she became queen, she was in Kenya when she got the news of her father's passing, 1952. I think I misspoke that on my show. I think I said 1946 on my show. The true date, 1952, when she ascended the throne. And she was in Kenya. And guess who else was in Kenya? The British Army, raping people. And I apologize for not giving an advance trigger warning for that description. But to be honest, our Western sensibilities can be occasionally offended given the scope of torture and just extreme disregard for human decency that the Kenyan people experience, that the Yemen people experience, that the Palestinian people experience, the Indians, the Pakistans, the Bajans, the Jamaicans, like the list goes on and on. The indigenous peoples of this continent that were subjected to British tyranny and imperialism and genocide, all in the name of the crown, and all falling eventually to the head of Queen Elizabeth. And as I see American media and even some Americans, even some Black and brown folks, some very confused, some very confused subjects of the British Commonwealth, I said, oh my God, please, please. White supremacy got some Black and brown people in a death grip. Like, oh my God, people. I said, how are you this hue and mourning Queen Elizabeth? How is this possible? But, Jordan raised a very good point earlier. It's so interesting to see this wall-to-wall coverage of what's happening with the procession of Elizabeth as her casket makes its way from Scotland to Ireland, back down to London. And we're getting all this 24/7 coverage of that. Are we getting the same 24/7 coverage of what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi with the undrinkable water? When people open up their faucets, brown water is coming out, shit that they can't drink, they cannot bathe their children in, they cannot wash their food in. How come American media doesn't give that catastrophe that is impacting actual Americans the same level, the same bright light attention on that as it is of a monarch of a country that does not rule here, did not live here? Why does Queen Elizabeth get so much more than the people of Jackson? Well, we know why. White supremacy is one, classism is another. And just be mindful of that, right? The media is more concerned about a dead multi-billionaire than it is about poor residents of this country that don't have access to water. Another reason to throw the monarchy away. Let's throw up that Prince Andrew piece there, Colin. Because even the people in the United Kingdom are not able to voice their displeasure or their disapproval of the monarchy in peace. Check this out. So Prince Andrew, semi-known pedophile. I won't call him a known pedophile. Perhaps he is a semi-known pedophile. He is absolutely known to consult with pedophiles. You like my British accent here? Pedophiles. Yes, Andrew kicks it with the pedophiles. Everybody knows that. Headline here. This is from The Independent. Prince Andrew heckler charged with a breach of the peace after incident at Edinburgh Queen's procession. And this has been happening sporadically throughout the Queen's procession, where there have been a number of protesters who have come out, heckled Andrew rightly here. Let me see what he actually said to Prince Andrew. I can't believe Andrew actually came out the house. Like, bro, excuse me, sir. Didn't your mother just pay $12 million to compensate one of your alleged victims? What? How are you coming outside and showing your whole face out here? So a man was arrested for heckling Prince Andrew at the Queen's cortege, as a Queen's cortege passed along Edinburgh's Royal Mile, and they have been charged. A 22-year-old who was not named by police of Scotland is accused of a breach of the peace. What did it say? The same offense used to charge a woman who held up a, quote, abolish monarchy sign during the proclamation of King Charles III on Sunday, arresting people up and down, up and down. A Police Scotland spokesperson said a 22-year-old man has been arrested. Okay, Independent, this is actually very bad reporting here. This is not very good. He was released on an undertaking to appear at the Edinburgh Sheriff's Court at a later date. Anyway, I'm assuming that he must have called Andrew a pedophile, because why else would they have been arrested? Here we go. Footage showed the man shouting at Prince Andrew over allegations related to his former friend, American sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as he walked in his formation in the Queen's funeral cortege as part of the royal family. So people don't even get to heckle pedophiles in peace. You get arrested, you get charged for disturbing the peace, for pointing out that one of the Queen's sons is good buddies, very good friends with I guess you could say former sex offender, because Epstein is in the box with Lizzie. Lizzie also in the box. Jeffrey Epstein also in the box. When I look at American media covering every single aspect, every angle of the Queen's funeral thing, which, thank you, Jesus, they are going to finally put her ass in the ground Monday. So hopefully we could be done with this. Can we be done with this? This isn't even my fucking country, man. Why am I being kept abreast of all the pomp and the circumstance? I do not care. Get this lady out of here. Get her out of here. But the interesting thing is the royal examination of how are Harry and William getting on? What about Kate and Meghan Markle? Ooh, look at how they're standing. Oh, look at their facial expressions. Again, Jackson, bitch. Jackson, Mississippi. Savannah Guthrie, Hoda Kotb, everybody on the Today Show, everybody on Good Morning America, y'all should really be ashamed of yourselves, seriously, for slobbering all over this dead queen who had genocides, thousands of people murdered in the name of the crown, thus in her name, the trillions, actually we can't even probably count the amount of money and resources that the British Empire stole from countries and cultures all around the globe, right? This is not some shit that you revere. This is actually a perfect opportunity to examine the monarchy. Is the monarchy a relic of an institution? Yes. Is it past time for the monarchy to be abolished? Yes, it absolutely is. And any sort of dissent or conversations around the contrary, right, about abolishing the monarchy, those conversations are simply not being had. We're seeing these isolated incidents, even though I believe that they are less isolated than what they are being reported upon. And we're not having a frank conversation here. We are still playing make-believe and dress up and fairy tale land, in the land of kings and queens and princes and princesses, right? And I think in America, that's not some things that we should be subscribing to, nor should we be participating in. And when we look at the ways in which the monarchy is insulated, is protected, their wealth protected, their wealth hoarded from the rest of the citizens of the UK. But again, this is all shit that they stole, okay? When you see that crown on the Queen's head that she is apparently going to wear in the coffin, in her box, the Star of Africa, a 3,100 carat diamond stolen from South Africa in Pretoria, was quote unquote gifted to the crown at the close of a war there. And I assure you, it was not gifted, it was stolen. It was stolen. So Lizzie's in the box, and I hope that the royal family run the jewels, literally run them jewels back, run them resources back, run them trillions and trillions of dollars back. And if they have no intentions of doing that, then I think it is absolutely time that we abolish the monarchy. UK citizens, rise up, tear that crown down, burn that joint down, because it is over. We do not need to be adhering nor publicly financing an institution based on luxury, privilege, and the divine right of kings. So anyway, that's the show, guys. Do us a favor. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., join Jordan right here for a members only call-in. If you're not already a member to Status Coup, please take a moment to do so. Subscribe to the channel and give the channel a like or a thumbs up. If you like me, and you might not, but you might, who knows? Come hang out with me Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Burn It Down with Kim Brown is my YouTube channel. You can follow me different places around the internet at BIDWKB, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm on, I don't know, I'm a few places, but just BIDWKB, the YouTube channel. Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you so much for your time. Jordan will be back tomorrow. Thank you so much to Colin pushing the buttons behind the scenes. And we'll see y'all next Wednesday. See ya.